When something grand is about to happen, the signs of the divine reveal themselves unmistakably. Amid the uncertainties and challenges of life, the feeling of isolation can be replaced by a deep connection with the sacred. Each obstacle becomes a carefully prepared lesson, revealing that even the most difficult times are actually the prelude to a surprising transformation. This video is an invitation to see beyond momentary pain and perceive, in small miracles and gestures of hope, the touch of a greater purpose. Imagine turning each spiritual battle into valuable learning, where everyday trials become steps of an inner renewal. Before following on this journey of faith and self-knowledge, subscribe to the channel, enable notifications, and be part of a community that believes in the strength of hope and divine love. Evidence as growth opportunities. The difficulties we face are not always punishment or azars of life. They can actually be disguised opportunities for our spiritual maturation. Each obstacle, every challenging situation, brings with it a lesson that, if understood, strengthens us. Growth is often silent and happens within the soul, where faith is rooted. Overcoming a test is like climbing an invisible step towards a higher version of yourself. The pain we feel in times of difficulty can be the push we need to get out of stagnation. And it is in this movement that we discovered capabilities that we didn't even know how to possess. Overcoming then becomes a bridge between what we are and what we are destined to be. Over time, we learn to welcome the challenges with a new look. Instead of complaining or resisting, we ask, what does this situation have to teach me? This change of posture is essential to spiritual growth. When we look at the tests as opportunities, we are no longer victims and become protagonists of our own journey. Many of our biggest advances have not happened in the easy moments. It was in the valley, not at the top of the mountain, that we learned to trust, persist, and renew hope. Each fall brought with it the chance to get up more strongly and wisdom. Therefore, it is important to see the evidence not as purposes, but as infants disguised. Inner growth reveals itself when we understand that every experience has a purpose. Nothing is in vain when it comes to building a more conscious and connected soul. Proofs are like fire that refines gold, uncomfortable, yes, but absolutely necessary for the purification of our being. Growing spiritually is an act of courage. It requires disposition to look inside, face the pain, and extract from it meaning and strength. Each challenge overcome is a silent victory of the soul, which brings us even closer to the divine. Thus we find that the evidence is actually gifts of life that prepare us for something greater. Finally, remembering that life does not put us in the face of anything that we cannot overcome is essential. The strength we need is already within us. Evidence only reveals what was hidden: our faith, our determination, and our ability to transform. Spiritual sensitivity. Spiritual sensitivity allows us to perceive the divine presence in the details of life. It is like an inner antenna that captures subtle signals, often unnoticed by distracted eyes. Developing this perception is essential to recognize God's performance even in the most common situations. When we open our hearts, we can see the Creator's hand guiding our steps. Sensitive spirituality invites us to silence external noise to hear what comes from within. Often God speaks through intuition, sudden peace, or a deep feeling that arises without explanation. Developing this inner listening is critical to recognizing divine orientation. Sensitivity thus becomes a link between our soul and the sacred. Being spiritually sensitive also makes us more emphatic. We feel the pain of the other more depth, as we are connected to something greater than ourselves. This leads us to act with more compassion, patience, and love. Spiritual sensitivity transcends the ego and puts us at the service of light. To cultivate this sensitivity, it is important to create spaces of stillness and contemplation. Prayer, meditation, and reflection are powerful tools to calm the mind and hear what the Spirit means. The more tuned we are with the divine, the clearer becomes our perception of the signs. Nature is a great ally in this process. The wind, the corner of birds, the movement of the trees. Everything can be a channel of communication between God and us. Spiritual sensitivity makes us see the world with renewed eyes, full of gratitude and reverence. Each moment turns into a living prayer. Over time, spiritual sensitivity becomes a lifestyle. We live in more attentive, receptive, and guided. Decisions are no longer impulsive and are guided by deeper wisdom. The heart becomes the main instrument of discernment. Developing this sensitivity is not easy, but it is extremely rewarding. It requires delivery, constancy, and opening to the mystery. But the more we cultivate it, the more we realize that God has never been distant. He always spoke. It was just missing our senses to really hear Him. Daily practice of spirituality. Spirituality is not built at isolated times, but through daily practice. Small habits such as prayer when waking up or gratitude before bed shape our connection with the divine. These attitudes create an inner atmosphere of peace and trust. Spiritual discipline is the foundation for keeping the flame of faith alive. Even on calendar days, booking minutes to meditate or reflect can transform the rest of the day. The constancy of these moments creates deep roots in the soul. Over time, these practices become as natural as breathing. Spirituality becomes part of who we are, not just something we do. Prayer need not be long or complex. Sometimes a simple thank you with an open heart has immense power. The sincerity of the soul is worth more than beautiful words. God listens to the truth of our spirit, and every gesture of connection, however small, is a step toward Him. Reading sacred or inspiring texts also strengthens the spirit. They remind us of promises, renew hope, and realize their focus. These readings feed the mind with faith and help us deal with the daily challenges more serenity. Spirituality grows when we nourish our inside with light. In addition to internal practices, our actions in the world are also spiritual. The way we treat people, how we react to difficulties, and how we spread love reflect our connection with the divine. Daily spirituality is expressed in the practice of goodness and the compassionate look at others. It is important to remember that it is not perfection, but of intent and effort. Difficult days will come, and the constancy can falter, but the important thing is to resume the way with humility. Spirituality blooms in a heart that insists, even when it fails. Spiritual habit is constructed with patience. When we cultivate spirituality every day, it becomes an invisible shield. Protects, guides, and strengthens. In times of crisis, this base built with dedication sustains us. Daily practice prepares us for the ups and downs of life, keeping our gaze firm in hope. The strength of loneliness and introspection. In times of loneliness, we are invited to dive into ourselves. The silence that scares at first reveals, over time, a rich and full of answers inner universe. Being just does not mean being empty. In fact, it is often in solitude that we hear more clearly the voice of God. Introspection allows us to see forgotten aspects of our soul. With her, we revisit memories, understand wounds, and discover gifts. Well-lived loneliness becomes a spiritual retreat. It is where we grow up, not out of external noise, but by inner listening. When we move away from the noise of the world, we create room for divine presence to manifest. The rush of daily life often disconnects us from essence. Already silence reconnects us with what really matters. He repositions us on the axis of faith and purpose. It is not easy to face the emptiness that loneliness can bring, but by welcoming it, we find light. The soul in silence is a fertile field for spiritual rebirth. There, faith is strengthened, not by imposition, but by revelation. God is intimate in the breaks of life. Introspection also helps us make more conscious decisions. It pushes impulsivity and brings us closer to wisdom. Reflecting on our attitudes and feelings is an act of care for the spirit. This habit leads us to live more authentically. Solitude teaches that the most important company we can cultivate is ourselves. Learning to be well with you is a blessing. When we are at peace internally, even surrounded by uncertainties, we remain firm. Solitude becomes solo for emotional stability. Finally, we must remember that loneliness is not sentence, but opportunity. By welcoming it, we find that we are not really alone. God dwells in the deepest of our being. And when we silence the world, we hear its living presence within us. Resilience and courage. Resilience is the ability to continue even when it seems to say that we should stop. It is a silent force that springs from faith and trust in something greater. Courage, in turn, is not the absence of fear, but the decision to follow despite it. Both walk side by side on the spiritual journey. They support us at the darkest moments. To be resilient is to accept that not every day will be easy, but all will bring some lesson. Over time, we learn that falling is not failure, but part of the way. Raising even wounded is a sign of inner grandeur. Each restart strengthens the soul and reaffirms our determination to follow with purpose. Courage allows us to take steps even without guarantees. It is she who moves us when logic says there is no way out. Faith strengthens this courage, making it an expression of our relationship with the divine. When we trust, we don't walk alone. God walks with us, step by step. Developing resilience is like strengthening a muscle. The more we face challenges with hope, the stronger we become. With each overcoming, we build a more solid base. The pain is no longer enemy and becomes master. Teach, transforms, and shape. In moments of adversity, it is common to feel like giving up. But that is exactly where the courage reveals itself. Not as a grand emotion, but as a daily choice to raise, continue, believe. Small acts of courage add great victories on the path of faith. Resilience also feeds on love. When we know that we are loved by God, we find strength as far as we thought not. Love reminds us that we are not alone. It is the fuel that drives us to try once again, even tired. Finally, understanding that resilience and courage are not innate gifts, but cultivated attitudes, it is liberating. We can all develop them. Just take the first step and trust the process. God honor every movement of faith, and every gesture of courage will be rewarded with grace and growth. The power of sharing. Sharing is an act of generosity that goes beyond the material. When we divide experiences, learning, and even weaknesses, we make room for true connections. By telling how we exceed challenges, we inspire faith in other hearts. And as we listen carefully, we become instruments of healing and welcoming. Spiritual sharing creates deep ties. Testimonies of transformation and overcoming feed collective hope. In each story with sincerity, there is a seed of light that can flourish in other lives. Spirituality grows when it is lived in community with love and truth. Even in our pains, there is something valuable to offer. When we divide our weights, they become lighter. Not because they disappear, but because we let others help us carry them. And this simple gesture reminds us that we have never been alone. God also acts through people. The act of sharing requires courage. It is necessary to open the heart, take the mask, and let the other see who we really are. But it is in this vulnerability that the strongest bonds are born. Love manifests itself where there is truth, and the truth heals when it is welcomed with compassion. Sharing is also service. Donate time, listening, prayer, advice. Small gestures with great impact. When we offer something from us without waiting return, we are imitating divine generosity. And the more we give love, the more we become channels of grace. In the practice of sharing, we learn to recognize God's presence in the other. We look beyond the appearances and see the pain and faith that each one carries. This empathy humanizes us, brings us closer, and strengthens spiritual communion. United, we are stronger and closer to the divine. Finally, the true sharing is the one that flows from the heart. It doesn't have to be perfect, just sincere. When we allow love to overflow through words, gestures, and attitudes, life enlightens. And then we understand that sharing is also a powerful way to worship God. Spiritual preparation precedes every significant blessing in our lives. It is in this waiting time that we are shaped, strengthened, and aligned with the divine purpose. Many times, we do not understand why we do not receive what we want so much, but it is in this process that character is refined. God works in silence, preparing us for what He has already reserved. During preparation, we are called to constancy, faithfulness in small gestures, continuous prayer, in the practice of good. All this builds the foundation of blessing. It's not just about waiting, but how we expect it. The attitude with which we walk to the promise reveals how ready to receive it. Preparation time can be challenging as it requires patience and confidence. But it is also an opportunity to connect more deeply with God. He doesn't delay His promises, but delivers them at the perfect moment. Meanwhile, He invites us to grow, learn, and mature spiritually. Many blessings require us to leave something behind: old habits, limiting thoughts, fears. Preparation helps us detach from what prevents us from moving forward. It is like an inner cleaning, making room for the new one to come. Without this preparation, we could even waste what we so much asked. Obedience is an essential pillar in this process. Even when we do not understand, trust and follow divine direction demonstrates spiritual maturity. God honors those who follow with faith, even in the dark. Obedience during active preparation, the fulfillment of promises at the right time. During this phase, every detail matters. The way we treat others, the way we take care of our faith, is all being observed and worked by God. Preparation is not punishment, it is careful. God is equipping us to receive without fear, to live the blessing with responsibility and gratitude. At the end of preparation, we are no longer the same. The transformation that occurs within us is the true miracle. And when the blessing arrives, we realize that it not only fulfills a request, but confirms a process of growth and delivery. God does not give us something without making us ready to sustain Him. Transform conflict into learning. Conflicts are part of life. They appear in traffic, in difficult conversations, in poorly interpreted messages. But what we do to them is what really counts. When you respond serenity, the conflict transforms. He is no longer a threat and becomes a growth opportunity. And it's not self-help chat, it's wisdom practice. Imagine that discussion that almost got you serious. Now you think, what if, instead of retorting, you had made a silent answer? Given one step back, breathed, chosen the right time to talk. It changes everything. The situation may not even resolve on time, but you remain whole. And this is already a victory. Transforming conflicts into learning requires self-control. Anger even comes, but you don't let yourself be overwhelmed by it. Instead of reacting on impulse, you observe. Ask, what is this trying to show me? Sometimes what seems like an attack is just poorly expressed pain of the other. Sometimes it is your own fear speaking louder. And understanding that changes the way you deal with the world. It is not about accepting everything silent. It is about choosing when and how to act. Knowing that not every clash needs to become war. And that sometimes the biggest sign of strength is to give in a little to maintain the bond. Balance is in this neither passive nor explosive. Only conscious. You position yourself without getting lost. You defend yourself without hurting. Empathy is a great ally in this process. When you try to understand what the other feels, anger loses strength. The active listening, the sincere look, the calm tone all disarms the conflict. Of course, it doesn't work with everyone, but it works on you. And if you change, the environment inevitably begins to change too. A practical tool. Use the timeout technique. If you feel it will explode, let me know. I need time to think about it. Move away, breathe, reflect. Then come back more clearly. This avoids fights, brings people closer and shows maturity. Poorly resolved conflict becomes hurt. But well-conducted conflict becomes connection. What's more, each conflict is a mirror. It reveals where you still feel insecure, where you have open wounds. Therefore, take advantage of friction as healing opportunities. Ask questions to yourself. Why did it touch me so much? What part of me felt threatened? The answer may surprise you and free. In the end, the greatest masters of our lives are often those who challenge us. They are the ones who force us to grow, to position us, to practice what we preach. Do not escape the conflicts. Face them with conscience, because, with the right tools, even the pain becomes evolution, and you become someone who transforms instead of reacting. Being serene is not being indifferent, nor ignoring the problems. It is, in fact, to make a brave choice every day to act consciously even when everything around it seems to ask a hurry or reaction. Serenity is a decision. And the most interesting thing is that it does not come ready, it is built, moment at moment, in small choices. Do you know the moment you could explode, but decide to take a deep breath? This is the conscious choice for serenity. It is understanding that you do not need to be hostage to what you feel. It can recognize emotion, welcome, but choose a different answer. This is self-control in practice. This is where you show that the boss in your life is not anger, it is your conscience. And no, that doesn't mean repressing feelings. On the contrary, it means allowing them to come, but without letting them control you. It is like being the captain of a ship in the midst of the storm. The sea shakes, but you keep the direction. And that, over time, becomes its base. It becomes his safe place, his new way of being in the world. Serenity is also strategic. It allows you to see solutions that stress would hide. It improves your decision-making, your communication, until your physical health. How many diseases come from excess tension, lack of break? When you choose calm, also choose to live with more quality. And this is reflected in everything. A simple practice to develop this choice is the 3-second answer. Before reacting to any situation that unbalances you, count mentally up to 3. This micropause gives you room to get out of the automatic. It sounds little, but it can save relationships, decisions, and even your mental peace. Over time, it becomes a habit. What's more, this serenity becomes visible. People notice. They ask how you can keep calm. And without saying a word, you inspire. You become a stability reference. A point of peace in the middle of the rush. This is much more powerful than trying to convince someone with speech. Serenity convinces by example. Choosing calm does not mean escaping conflicts. It means facing them more intelligently. You don't nullify yourself, just position yourself clearly, with respect, firmness, and presence. And in this process, he realizes that the world does not have to swallow you so that you are alive. You can live with intensity and peace at the same time. This choice for serenity is one of the greatest forms of freedom. Because in dominating your interior, nothing external has the power to easily unbalance you. Life keeps happening, but you learn to pass it on more lightly. And this, my friend, is the kind of power no one takes from you. When you change inside, the world changes around. It may seem exaggeration, but it is not. A person alone has a huge effect on the environment. Do you know that good feeling of being close to someone who conveys tranquility? This energy is real, and it begins with internal choices. Calmly, with balance, with presence. The transformation begins in the silence of your heart. You don't have to scream to be heard. When you live what you believe, your conscious communication inspires without effort. People start to ask themselves, how can he handle all this so well? And without realizing it, you become a reference of stability. This collective impact happens in little things, in the tone of your voice, the way you listen, in the way you deal with your own mistakes. His empathy teaches, his patience educates, his serenity heals. It is the domino effect of consciousness, and it's impossible to practice it just for you. Once awake, you inevitably influence the world. And you don't need great actions. Sometimes, the simple fact of not getting into a fight, listening carefully, respecting the other's time, is already a revolution. These attitudes break cycles of aggressiveness, disrespect, impulsiveness. When you change the frequency of your energy, everything around it starts to vibrate different as well. You become a mirror of what is possible. It shows that you can have firmness without rigidity, opinion without aggressiveness, truth without imposition. Its inner fortress becomes shelter for those who need it. And even unintentionally, you plant seeds of change. Sometimes in a conversation, sometimes only with your silent presence. Want to see this in practice? Think of someone who inspires you peace. Now, imagine being that person for someone. You are already, even if you have not yet noticed. Every attitude of yours is a message to the world. A conscious choice of responding with serenity rather than reacting on impulse. This is a collective gift. And of course, the path is continuous. Having impact does not mean being perfect. It means being real, human, constantly evolving. It means recognizing your mistakes and keeping trying. And in doing so, you allow others to become It shows that growing is not linear, but it is possible and it is worth it. In the end, transforming the world may seem like a huge mission, but it all starts with you. The way you treat yourself, in the choices you make on a daily basis. Your peace is the first step for a better world. Because where there is someone in balance, there is always room for hope. And this is more than enough to inspire real changes. Now tell me, what are you going to do with all that you just learned? Will you let these ideas cool or start, even today, to practice what makes sense to you? Because the true change does not start with great revolutions, but with small daily decisions. And the most powerful of these is to choose to live more calmly, serenity and self-control, even when everything seems to fall apart. What attitudes can you change tomorrow? What reaction can be replaced by a silent response? Where can you put more empathy, more balance, more respect? Believe me, every conscious choice you make not only transforms your life, it reverberates, affects who is close, and gradually it impacts the whole world. Remember, you don't have to be in control of everything. You just need to learn how to command what is within you. And when that happens, even the chaos out there begins to lose strength. How about starting this journey of transformation right now? You are not alone in this, and every step, serenity is becoming more natural. If this content has made sense to you, subscribe to the channel here and activates the notifications. Thus, you continue to receive reflections, practical tools and inspirations to follow firmly on this walk of self-knowledge and inner peace. Let's go, step by step, build a space of more balance and consciousness. Because yes, it is possible to live lightly even in turbulent times. True spiritual transformation is not an isolated event, but a continuous process. Each day we are invited to evolve, to undress old standards and to embrace new ways with humility. The ripening of the soul requires constancy and delivery. It is not about changing once, but of allowing divine light to transform us repeatedly. Continuous transformation happens in silence, behind the scenes of everyday life. In our reactions, choices, words, and thoughts. Each attitude is a seed thrown into fertile soil. When we water with faith, patience, and gratitude, the fruits appear naturally. The soul flourishes little by little. Staying in the process of change is also an act of courage. It requires recognizing that there is always something to improve, not as a weight, but as an invitation to expansion. The spiritual journey is dynamic, and accepting it frees us from rigidity and fear of making mistakes. We are work under construction in the hands of the Creator. With each challenge overcome, we are cut. Pain shapes us, love perfects us. God uses the stations of life to teach us deep lessons. The winter of the soul prepares the terrain for the spring of renewal. And so we follow, from glory into glory, being transformed into the image of a greater purpose. Continuous transformation also invites us to vigilance. Be aware of the signs of heaven, the emotions of the heart, and the temptations of the routine. Living in a state of spiritual attention keeps us aligned with the divine will. Transformation requires presence, consciousness, and daily choice. This process brings us closer to who we really are in essence. As we drop the masks and heal the wounds, we reveal the brightness of the soul. It is in this authenticity that God dwells. And the more we allow ourselves to be shaped, the more we reflect His love in the world. Finally, understanding that transformation is for life brings us peace. There is no final point on the path of faith, only new phases, new beginnings. And in every restart, Grace sustains us, guides us, and strengthens us. To be transformed continuously is living in motion with the divine. We come to the end of this journey of reflection and faith, but the spiritual path is continuous. Each topic addressed here is an invitation to dive deeper into self-knowledge, strengthen your faith, and live in harmony with divine purpose. May each word sown in this content flourish in your life as a result of transformation, courage, and hope. Remember, there is no growth without delivery, no blessing without preparation. Allow yourself to live spirituality in an authentic way, cultivating sensitivity, daily practice, resilience, and shared love. May your walk be marked by constant renewal and unshakable faith. If this message has touched your heart, like the video, share it with someone special, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive new content like this. Together we will continue to spread light, hope, and purpose around the world. Until the next meeting, and may divine grace follow every step of your journey.